So far, we've been looking at instruments, and all the instruments have either been pipes or strings, but not all instruments fall into those categories. So what we're going to look at is 3 instruments today, of which what's common is that they're all a vibrating metal surface. And so what we want to try to do is look at those characteristics and see how they behave. So let's start with the steel pan. So first off, a lot of people refer to this as a steel drum, but most people who play that refer to it as a steel pan. Okay, and what this particular pan is actually made out of a 55-gallon barrel. Okay, this pan in particular is kind of an old one. It was made by a well-known pan maker. The late Cliff Alexis made this one. And made from the top of a 55-gallon barrel. And then the first step is to sink it with a big sledgehammer, okay? And you pound it and you sink this thing, and it adds a whole lot of tension to the top of that, okay? Then you take a tool similar to a nail set, and you go through, there's little regions here. Each of the notes is a little region, and it's outlined with this little, like a nail set, and that defines the region that's going to vibrate. Then what they do is they'll take a hammer and a smaller hammer and hammer individual sections to tune it, pushing it down or pushing it back to try to get it to the right pitch. Okay. Now, periodically throughout this process, the pan will go into the oven and will have some stress relieved. Excuse me. And so now this is an instrument that you don't tune as a player. This is something that if you need it to be tuned, you send it to a tuner. It is not something that I would want to try to tune. I had this tuned a couple years ago. Hopefully I can go a couple more years without it having to be tuned again. Now, this particular pan has got 28 notes on it, a little more than 2 octaves, and this is called a tenor, also known as a soprano. Sometimes they call it a lead. It often is in a band, it is what carries the melody in many cases. Okay. Then there are some other cases you might see where someone is playing 2 of these instruments, but they have fewer notes and they're bigger regions. The bigger region are lower notes. Smaller regions are higher notes. Okay, and we've seen that before. Okay. So now, if you have 2 of these instruments, that typically might be referred to as an alto, a double tenor. It could be a double second. There's some slightly difference between them. And it'd be 2 of these pans. Those pans, instead of having 28, might have 14 or 15 notes on each, but there'd be 2 pans, so the person would be playing 28, 30 notes. Then you might see someone playing 3 of these pans. That would be the cello, and each of those might have 5 notes around the outside and a couple in the middle. So 7, 3 of those, so 21 notes. There's also a quad, which is somewhat less common. That's 4 pans. And typically you might have 2 up a little higher. And then the basses. The basses are a much longer pan. Almost the entire 55-gallon barrel is used. And the top is not sunk very deep, so there's a lot less tension. The regions are very big. Typically the basses will only have 3 notes, but there'll be 6 or 8 of the pans, and so a player may be having 18 or 24 notes that they're covering, and they have to cover a big distance because the pans are kind of far apart. So now the mallets that are used, mallets that I have here are aluminum rods with a little rubber on the ends. More original type would be a wooden type mallet with kind of a rubber type material on the ends. And the way you don't hold them rigid, doesn't sound very good. You hold them as loose as you can, right here in your fingertips. You hold them as loose as you can without dropping them, and you let that get off. If you hold it rigid, you don't get a very good sound. And so that's a little bit about the mallets. Now, note locations. How are the notes located on this? Okay, well, it's not standardized, but it's getting there. It's getting to be more standardized. Different pan makers might arrange it slightly different ways, but it's becoming a little bit more standardized. The way this works is there are 12 notes along the outside edge, and that is in the circle of fifths. Okay, it's referred to the circle of fifths. from a music theory standpoint of view. Anybody who studied music theory would know the circle of fifths, and that's the arrangement. That's 12 notes, and inside are the exact same 12 notes, but an octave higher. So that's 24 notes, and then there's room for 4 more notes in the middle. Now, so what we get, this one is 28, so it allows for you, by this arrangement, it allows for you to find chords fairly easy. The ones that are a half step apart are actually, this is an older pan, it's a D, low D. Some of the newer pans are low C, but here's a D. If I want to go to a half step up, I always go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clockwise. 5 clockwise from here, 5 clockwise from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you always go 5 clockwise, you get a half step up. Now, one of the nice things about this arrangement, it puts some nice notes easy to get to. So you can play melody like I did before with Mario, or you can play something more with going across and play more with trying to get the chords. So that's a little bit about the steel pan. It's just a region that's vibrating. What you want to know is that the more tension you put on it, and the smaller the region, the higher that pitch is going to go. If it's not sunk very deep and the regions are big, that's going to be low tension, large wavelength. That's going to be a much lower note. Okay, so steel pan, kind of a fun thing, or originated in the Trinidad Tobago area. Very much common in the calypso music, but often used in a lot of other styles as well. Okay, now another instrument we're going to look at is the harmonica. So we're going to look at the harmonica. Okay. So let's take a look at the harmonica. There's different styles of harmonica, and these are just a metal reed that's going to vibrate. Okay, typical style is what's called the marine style harmonica, and this one here is a marine style harmonica. It's got 10 holes, and they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right across the edge there. Okay, and there's 10 holes, and although there are many styles of harmonica, the marine style is a pretty common one. It is 10 holes, and each hole has 2 reeds. Now here's one that's been opened up. It's kind of an old one. Okay, and what you might see on here are, these are the reeds on one side, and then these are the reeds that are on the other side. Okay, and when you play this, each hole plays 2 notes. One reed when you blow, and a different reed when you draw. So you blow, you get 1 note, you draw, you get another one. And then by shaping your mouth, you can decide which hole you want to go with by blocking it with either your lips or your tongue. And you can play individual notes. Or you can open up, and the arrangement is such that you get a lot of chords. So they try to make it so that when you blow in a bigger regions, you'll get notes that sound together. So you can play the same thing, but instead of doing individual notes, you play. And so that's the harmonica. Now, the harmonica is key specific, kind of like the tin whistle. So when you look at a harmonica, it'll tell you which key it's being played in. And so a lot of really good harmonica players might have a whole set of harmonicas, and the harmonica will tell you which key they're in. And so a harmonica player might have a whole set of 12 or more, and they will give you the, as a song is played in a certain key, they will pick out a certain harmonica, and if the song changes to a different key, they pull out a different harmonica. Some will actually have a vest where the harmonicas will be placed in there. Okay, Now, the last instrument we're going to look at is a very unique instrument, and that instrument is something you might have at home. It's just a saw, okay? So just have a regular saw here, and it's a metal surface that can vibrate, okay? But we're going to make it vibrate in a way that might surprise you. Okay, this is one of the only instruments that I know, at least the only one that I play, where you actually change the pitch by changing the tension. Okay, most other ones you change by doing length, or you select which note you're going to play. But this one, you've got one thing and you're simply going to change the tension. So the way we do this is we actually, let's see if I can just let you see a little bit better. You actually pinch it between your knees, okay? And then what you do is you bend it. You don't bend it in a C shape. You actually push up with your thumb. You do an S-shaped curve. And then you gotta bow it. Now, many bowers, they will use a real bow as a violin, okay? A violin player might use a bow. I didn't have one. I'm not a violin player, so I made a bow. And my bow is half of a yardstick, got this from Lowe's, and then fishing line wrapped around it. I bent it, and then I wrapped the fishing line around it. I put glue on the back here to hold the string in place. I do use a lot of rosin. So a violin player might have a block of rosin that they would put on their bow. So I use a lot of rosin on this thing, helps it to stick and then slip and stick and slip, and that's how a violin works. Okay, so I put a lot of rosin on here. And then what you're going to do is we go like such, you put the S curve. As we put more tension on it, the pitch goes up. As we relieve the tension, the pitch goes down. Let's see if I can play a song. This is my most difficult instrument to play. All right, hope you enjoyed that. There's few different instruments that are not pipes or strings.